ladies and gentlemen.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high. Even if the sky is falling down. Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly. Sometimes we're crashing down, but we get up and start from the ground. And I really wanna know if I will ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high. Even if the sky is falling down, even if the sky is falling down, the sky is falling down. Even if the sky is falling down, even if the sky is falling down, the sky is falling down. Lay awake until the morning in an ocean so deep. Got a feeling like I'm dauntless whenever you're next to me. 'Cause I've climbed higher than I could dream of.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats. The program will begin shortly. Good afternoon and welcome to the International Center for Photography's 10th Anniversary Spotlights benefit. To both our in-person guests and those tuning into the live broadcast, thank you for joining us today. Please welcome to the stage our event co-chairs ICP Trustee Peggy Anderson and Debby Hymowitz. Good afternoon and welcome to the International Center for Photography's 10th Anniversary Spotlights benefit. To both our in-person guests and those tuning into the live broadcast, thank you for joining us today. Please welcome to the stage our event co-chairs ICP Trustee Peggy Anderson and Debby Hymowitz.
Hi everyone, can you hear? Yeah? Welcome to the 10th Annual Spotlights. Happy anniversary. What a pleasure to see everyone together in person again, and for the first time, Spotlights in ICP's new beautiful home. What is the soul of a place other than a collection of the hearts who create it? It's infused into the institution we sit in, Cornell Kappa's passion for concerned photography. And that same mission and spirit is at the center of our annual Spotlights tradition. This event was nurtured over 10 years by all of us who come to learn something new, to understand the human experience in a previously unseen way, and mostly to feel part of a community that sees photography as a reflection of the care we have for our fellow man through a deep dive into seminal work of extraordinary women. So thank you for lending your spirit to the soul of Spotlights. We appreciate you and hope our compassionate community continues to share, to grow, and to pay forward all we know. And a special deep thank you to Peggy for 10 years of friendship and dedication. We've never had so much as one crossword. Differing opinions doesn't have to mean divisiveness. With all my love and gratitude, let's continue to support each other and the shared Spotlights ICP mission.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peggy Anderson. I'm I'm a trustee and also an alum of the school. ICP is a community of image makers, scholars, collectors, donors, teachers, staff, and students from all over the world. And students come to ICP because of the amazing reputation of the school and the fantastic teachers that are here. And being both a trustee and an alum, I feel really lucky to be a part of this community. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been a part of this event for 10 years, and so many of you in the audience have been coming since the really beginning, and it's really special to see you here. Sorry, I'm reading this. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's also worked on this event over the years, and especially thank you to our fellow committee members, Isolde Brielmeier and Stefano Tonki and Almudena. It's been great having meetings with you guys every week, and also a special thanks to Debby, who's really brought like her soul and passion to this event over the years, and it's been so great to work together. And I just want to say thank you to the staff at ICP, Susie and her team, also Makeout for making this space look so incredible today. I mean, it feels, I almost feel emotional, like being here in the ICP space and having this event here, and kind of coming full circle, and even having Jillian's work on the wall, and she was one of our original honorees for Spotlights, and you might have seen the bags on the back of your table, but they list all the names of previous honorees, and I think that's really special. So, before, anyways, I just, again, thank you for coming, and I want to now give the podium to David Little, who is the new executive director of ICP, and so excited to have you here.
Great, thank you, Debbie and Peggy. On January 10th, 2012, ICP launched a new program called Spotlights that featured talented women photographers in conversations about art and cultural issues. At that first program, 300 guests gathered to hear a lively discussion among the panelists, including Mary Ellen Mark and Jillian Laub, whose work, as Peggy mentioned, is on view here. Since that time, we've honored remarkable women photographers, from Carrie Mae Weems and Laurie Simmons to Micheline Thomas, all in an effort to raise funds for ICP's scholarships in our education and exhibition programs. Today, we are proud to be here at ICP's new building on 79 Essex Street in the Lower East Side. Now, it's not 43rd Street, not the Bowery, please let everyone know, 79 Essex Street, to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Spotlights and to honor the renowned artist and educator, Catherine Opie, who I'll say a little bit more about later. I'm David Little, as you know, ICP's new executive director as of September, and I'm thrilled to lead this distinguished institution founded nearly 50 years ago, and to be here today with you. Thank you to all of you joining in person, and thank you to the Christian Louboutin, our sponsor for the second year. This is, we'll do a cheer for Christian. This year is particularly significant because we are hosting for the first time in this amazing new building. And to have Spotlights here is really special. This building is a center of thinking, making, and learning about art and photography and image making. I can't think of a more fitting place in New York City for Spotlights to take place. And for those of you who are turning in on YouTube, welcome. We're so happy to have you join us from around the world. Spotlights, like all events, was completely virtual last year due to the pandemic. Despite this hardship that everyone faced, it really provided unprecedented access to this particular event. And we wanted to make that access available going forward. So we're so excited to have both a live event as well as a virtual event so the visitors can join us. Much of the credit to Spotlights needs to go to our dedicated founders who just spoke, co-chairs Peggy Anderson and Debby Hymowitz, who worked so hard to nurture and develop this event over the last 10 years. Please join me in thanking them for their tireless effort. Additionally, I'd like to thank our ICP co-chair, Almudena Legaredo, Trustee Stefano Tonki, ICP Curator at Large Isolde Briememeyer, and don't forget to don't miss her great show on the third floor after this if you can, and the deep and enduring commitment that they have had to today's event. And a shout out to Susie Safranco and her team for the amazing work that she did to make this possible. So, I'd also like to extend a special thank you to the ICP Board of Trustees for their continued support of Spotlights and everything that we do at ICP. I hope I don't embarrass you by saying this, but I hope that you could all stand up, the trustees at ICP, so that we could recognize you and honor you with an applause. So if you could stand up. ICP could not ask for a more committed board. They are responsible for bringing ICP to this building, which joins scholarship, teaching, and exhibition galleries today for the first time in ICP's history. Thanks to the board's dedication and generosity, we are now poised for an exciting new chapter for our institution. That will, a future that will build on ICP's tradition and role as a center to see international exhibitions on concerned photography that is relevant to culture today, and a leader in education for the next generation of photographers, makers, and critical thinkers. To those of you who tuned in online, I hope you can visit ICP here, again, 79 Essex Street. Our entrance is literally steps away from the Delancey Essex Street stop, the M&F Street. And if you're not in New York, become part of our community by taking one of our online courses and attending our virtual programming. There are so many ways that you can be part of the ICP community. Today, we are thrilled to have the opportunity to recognize and honor the talented artist, photographer, educator, and activist, Catherine Opie. Cathy has exhibited extensively throughout the United States and abroad, and is held in over 50 major collections throughout the world, her work that is, including the ICP's. Her work addresses complex notions of community and identity across the American landscape that we will hear more about in this program. In the ICP spirit, Cathy is also committed to education and shaping a new generation of photographers. As the Linda and Stuart Resnick Endowed Chair at UCLA, where she is a professor of photography and chair of the Department of Art, Cathy is dedicated to providing educational opportunities to all students. She has announced her goal to raise $10 million in scholarship support for the department to ensure ongoing access to arts education at the university. Bravo for that. We join Cathy in this mission today as we raise funds for the Mary Ellen Mark Memorial Scholarship. A portion of all proceeds today will go towards future scholarships for ICP's international student body. And at the end of this program, we will announce this year's Christian Louboutin and Mary Ellen Mark scholarship recipients, two incredible photographers currently enrolled at ICP. To guide us through Cathy's career is an old friend. We're honored to have the renowned critic and curator Helen Molesworth here with us. Helen is curator and writer, most recently having curated the exhibition Feedback at Jack Shaman Galleries, The School, and Tinderhook. It was really an amazing show to see this summer. She is also a recipient of the 2011 Bard Center of Curatorial Studies Award for Curatorial Excellence and serves as curator in residence for the Anderson Ranch at Aspen. She also has a terrific show on view right now at the David Werner show that she curated on Ruth Azawa. That is definitely worth seeing. Among numerous exhibitions that highlight women artists and artists of color, Helen curated Cathy Opie, Empty and Full, presented at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston in 2011, and wrote one of the essays in Catherine's most recent self-titled monograph. Helen and Cathy have been friends for many, many years, and I think that you'll see that in this engaging conversation that you're about to see. So thank you again for coming, and it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage Helen Molesworth and Cathy Opie.
Are we mic'd? Can you guys hear us yet? Have they turned it on?
Can you hear us, everyone?
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you to the ICP for doing this. It's amazing to be here with all of you in person. I haven't been in New York since 2019, so I'm quite excited about being back. And for those on YouTube, yeah, check out the programs here. I have been following this institution for as long as I can remember. So really happy to be here. Thank you. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Cathy. Hi, everyone.
Okay, we're going to get cozy here.
Thanks as well to David, who I've known for so long, and to Susie for the invitation and making all the arrangements and everything, putting together this beautiful room, and giving me another opportunity to talk with you, Cathy Opie. So you know what I was thinking on the way over here?
What?
So you know there's this thing called an EGOT. Does everybody know what an EGOT is? An EGOT is someone who wins an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And I realized that I'm a Cathy Opie EGOT. I have curated your work in a solo exhibition. I've put your work in group shows. I've bought your work for museums. I've written about your work. And I've sat for a portrait.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And I've interviewed her in public before. Like, I'm a Cathy Opie EGOT.
Wow.
I know. I feel like I need some kind of special shirt or a tote bag.
I'm going to figure out a special trophy for that, Helen.
Oh, and here's the other thing I've done with you. I've taught with you.
Yes, we did. We taught at Anderson Ranch last summer. We did a class. It was Helen, myself, and Christina Quarles, and we did what we called a kind of master critique class for a week. And so we did teach together.
We've taught together.
And now we can. That's even more than an EGOT,
yep.
I think.
Exactly.
Is it an EGOTer?
I'm batting 1,000 when it comes to you.
So.
But why am I a Cathy Opie EGOT? I'm a Cathy Opie EGOT because very early in my life in contemporary art, I saw your work and was absolutely riveted by it. And I was riveted by two different bodies of work. And I think that those two themes play throughout your work, and they're going to be the question, they form the basis of the questions I'm going to ask you. And I know that, yeah, there we go. So we've got to rotate. So what you're going to see are images from Cathy's oeuvre just sort of rolling alongside. And I would love it if someone would hit the timer, just so that I know when to stop. Because Cathy and I, there we go.
There's a big timer right there.
Yes, thank you. Because Cathy and I could talk for eternity. So I want to make sure that we don't do that, because that would be wrong. So the first body of work of yours I saw were the empty freeway pictures. Mm-hmm. They were small. They were deeply evocative. Even though you understood that they were photographs of the LA freeways, it was really unclear, one, how you managed to take them, 2, whether we were looking at something from the past or the future. And 3, they were just such they were very, very American. Like, where else in the world is that kind of formation? It's a deeply American formation. And then the second body of work I saw was portraits, very regal, of queer folk. And as a queer person, I had a moment of like, oh, snap. Like, there I am, there we are. And sometimes that was scary. There I am, there we are. And sometimes it was wildly exhilarating. But this tension in Kathy's work between portraiture and landscape is something that you've volleyed back and forth between these things. Like, you either fill the frame with a human being, or you strip humans out of the situation and give us and show us the built environment, the world that we make. And so the first question I wanted to ask you today was, I know that during the pandemic, you rented.
I bought.
You bought.
I bought the RV. Julie and I now forever have an RV. Her name is Lady Thor.
See, already queer landscape coming to a head right here, because who else would buy an RV and call it Lady Thor? So I know that you bought this RV.
Yeah.
And that you went out basically to take pictures in the wake of the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And the extraordinary efflorescence of activism that happened in the wake of that horrific state murder. And you were really interested in these monuments that were coming down. And you wanted to sort of see what was going on out there. And again, if I think about people and monuments of people and this landscape, like, so you went out to make a brand new body of work in the middle of this extremely contentious, divisive, troubling time that we're in. And I wondered if you would just talk a little bit about that trip and the work that resulted.
No, definitely. I mean, one of the things that happened, I think, to all of us during the time of the pandemic is not just living in relationship to what happened with George Floyd, but also just the incredible kind of frontal perspective of white supremacy in this country again that I remembered very well from I turned 60 this past year, so I remember very well like watching the nightly news and watching the Democratic Convention in Chicago and all of that violence unfold. And I actually thought that I knew that I lived in a complicated country, but I thought I lived in a country that at least had left that behind, especially in terms of, I photographed Obama's inauguration in a body of work titled Inauguration and went there specifically to do that. And so I was looking at all the news like everybody else. We were at home kind of tied to our televisions. We were under the anxiety of what was going to happen with the election. We had an enormous amount of isolation from the world, but yet we were looking at the world all around us. And I remember when the social media images came up of the Richmond, Virginia monument of Robert E. Lee, and I was like, and it became an activist site. And I was like, oh, I need to go there. I need to bear witness. And I really think about photography a lot in relationship to bearing witness. I think that I came out of a documentary kind of perspective and an education of why I wanted to be a photographer. And so it just so happened to coincide with sending our son off to college as well, Oliver, which was his first year, and he was going to be in person at Tulane University. And so I surprised my wife over there, Julie, and just said, hey, I found an RV. I think we should drive Oliver to school in an RV, and then I think we should take off and explore the South. And Julie's from Louisiana as well, and go and visit these monuments and bear witness to this moment in time. And so the body of work is titled 2020, which mirrors a body of work I did in 1999 before what I call the quaint fear of America, which was Y2K. Like Y2K now just seems like a quaint fear, right? Yeah, see, you're laughing, it's true. So there are different bodies of work where I really feel that the American road trip and the tradition of the American road trip is so much about photography and the relationship to how we look at this history that I went all through the South and
may I interrupt you
back.
for a second?
Yeah.
Like, particularly because of where we are, were you thinking about things like Robert Frank's The Americans and that kind of, Eggleston or Stephen Shear, that kind of road trip mentality that does, that the American photography is infused with?
Yeah, definitely, but I would say also very much from the FSA.
Okay.
So in terms of the idea still that, with Roy Stryker and the FSA and the movement, Farm Security Administration during the Depression, just to fulfill history a little bit here, but with Dorothea Lange and Walker Evans and, a whole history of photographers going out. And
Right.
I do think that it's an interesting moment to bear witness with a camera when it is a constant thing in our hands now. We all carry a camera.
And then for those of you who maybe don't know the FSA photography, I mean, it was a documentary project funded by the government that sent predominantly white photographers out into rural farming communities in this country to take pictures of, everyday folk. It had a kind of ethnographic or anthropological lens, and you never do that. You never objectify a person. Like, you don't go out and take pictures of strangers. So
Well, there are some in 2020 because
Yeah.
when I was at the Robert E. Lee Monument, and we talked about
That's
this in the
right.
studio
That's right.
too,
Uh-huh.
because you were like, I'm not sure about these portraits.
Yep.
And because they were there's only like very few figures in the body of work, but it's a family that had gathered, and Julie and I spent a number of hours there that day in Richmond, Virginia, at the monument and documenting it. And families kept coming, and I was there with a big camera, so they would ask me to hold their phones and do family photos of them, which I would do. And then there was one family that was just so incredible, and I had such an amazing connection with them that I asked them if it was okay if I took one with my own camera too. And so that ended up in the body of work because it felt really important to as a site of activism for those who were coming to be photographed there, that it changed the monument in the same way that when I did Obama's inauguration, in that book, there's children surrounding rebel soldiers. And so there's a link to that from when I did inauguration as well.
Right. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, I don't know how to say this other than in its most basic way, like the sadness that I think pervades a lot of our national discourse at the moment. Like, if you're open to it, like, to really come to a reckoning with white supremacy. I mean, to really look at our history and to confront, particularly as white people, all the stuff that we weren't taught in school, and, having to sort of redress those absences, and this kind of profound sadness that we don't have a culture where we don't know how to do reparations, we don't know how to atone. We don't have the mechanisms for atoning. And I found your pictures of some of the still extant monuments and some of just the pedestals. There were a lot of pictures of pedestals with the monuments gone. I found them suffused with a kind of quiet, not demonstrative grief, not grief that calls attention to the self, but a kind of quiet reckoning with how heavy this all is. And I wonder if you just could talk about like what it was like to take those pictures or edit them or to now to put them out into the world.
It was really moving. I cried a lot.
Yeah.
On that road trip, Julie and I had definite feelings, especially
Yeah.
at the Peace and Justice Memorial Museum. That was incredibly amazing piece that everybody should go into and bear witness to. And to start out and then have these names of who was lynched throughout the South end up over your head. Yeah, it makes you cry. I mean, I have tears in my eyes now. It is an incredibly hard, sad time. And I think that's why the importance of bearing witness has always been a key to my work is if we don't make the work, then how do we get to a better humanity? Like, how do we end up being able to see things, recognize things, have a conversation with it? I really believe in dialogue, and that's part of the way that the body of work ended up being edited. It's so that each image is a diptych, except for this one poem that I did titled Monument Monumental, but that it is like about a certain kind of metaphor of dialogue that needs to happen, that a single image at this moment in time can't explain the totality of what we're dealing with in terms of the history of this country. And so, yeah, it's sad.
I thought that was actually a really strong feature in the new work, that you were doing these diptychs, that you did have this, because your work has been, up till now, like very iconic, like, you know, single image, you know, like bam, like I got you by the throat and I really have you, you know, like, I mean, your pictures come off the wall. But so much of the new work had not only this doubleness, but then this absence, you know, absence, presence, a kind of ghosting that I found really interesting in an artist of your stature, that you, at 60, as you say, I mean, I know you can go in the studio and take great studio shots from now until the cows come home. Like, you didn't need to go out on the road.
Yeah,
you didn't
but
need
you
to
do
do
need-
that,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
did. You
yeah.
were pushing your own practice as part of this national effort, I think, to push us all to make some kind of redress, some kind of new path forward.
Yeah, and I would say that's the last 5 years of work, Helen, when you think about The Modernist and making that film. It's a film made out of black and white photographs of one of my best friends who's trans, Pigpen, who's been in many of my photographs over the years, and plays this protagonist of burning down the most iconic modernist houses in LA, and goes home and makes this like crazy collage in their studio where they live in. And then I followed The Modernist with rhetorical landscapes, which is images of swamps as well as these kiosks that have these animated political collages in. So instead of the collage being a subset thing that we think at and look at that's static, it's done in kind of a Monty Python fashion of where there's like very satirical humor embedded within it, which I actually have a sense of humor, and it's always surprised me that it didn't show up in my work that much. And I feel like, it actually showed up in the work at that point where, you know, you could see me poking holes and poking fun at things where normally the work is pretty serious, I guess.
It's also, the work has also been very beautiful. And I found the most recent body of work, like the pictures themselves are, you know, I mean, I think it might be impossible genetically for you to take a bad picture.
I don't know. There's a lot of editing that goes on in the studio, Helen.
I don't know. I've seen Opie take someone's iPhone and take a picture of it and like hand it back to you, and you're like, fuck you. Like, I've had this phone in my pocket for 10 years, and I've never taken a picture that gets anywhere near that. But so you have a great eye, but the new work, the pictures weren't beautiful in that way. Like, I felt like you were making a more Well, the subject matter has an ugliness, and you kind of let some of that pervade the aesthetic work that you were doing. Was
Yeah.
that conscious, or did that just materialize like that?
I think that the subject matter is so difficult and ugly in its own way that almost to take only beautiful, quiet pictures of something that's so loud and so full of hate is problematic on an aesthetic level.
Right.
So you have to put each time I'm dealing with the thoughts in my head or trying to answer the questions that I'm trying to answer by making work, I often I have a very large toolbox, as you and I call it, of being able to pull from different moments of history and art history. And so this was the specificity of 2020 was of where we all were and in a certain way. And there are moments that you have a pause that is a highly aestheticized moment, but because they're diptychs, you're also taken away from it. So you're never allowed to be settled in one kind of way within the pieces. They always have to be going back and forth in your head on a cognitive level of the notion of what conversation and dialogue is, especially for us in terms of being in a divided country in this moment in time.
All right, so I want to pivot away from
We're pivoting.
the new work. We're pivoting. Because I wanted to talk to Kathy. Kathy's, one of the reasons I was so happy to say yes to this conversation is because Kathy's actually embarked on 3 new things recently. And so to know someone as long as I have known you and to have an artist who is so established do 3 new things, this is exciting. So the new thing number 1 was the work. You went and did this road trip, you made this new body of work. New thing number 2 is a capstone to something you've been doing for a long time, which is you are now the chair of the studio of
UCLA
studio
Art
art,
Department.
UCLA,
Yeah.
one of the best art programs in the country. You've taught for as long as I've known you. You're part of your identity, in LA is very much that you teach at UCLA. You have generated tons of students over the years. And I guess I wanted to talk to you about 2 things in regards to teaching. One is, not all artists teach, and you've always put a flag in the ground around teaching. And I guess I wanted to know, 1, why, and 2, what has teaching enabled you to do as an artist that you think maybe you couldn't have done if you didn't teach?
Yeah, I can talk about that. It is 30 years now of teaching.
It's amazing.
22 years at UCLA. If you count the adjunct years, a total of 25 at UCLA. And I never didn't want to be a teacher. I got my master's degree actually knowing that I would just teach. I didn't ever think that I would show as an artist. I had no idea that I would end up being able to go out and make work. At that time, the big photo galleries in LA in the 80s when I graduated out of Cal Arts was Fahey Klein and Jan Kestner. And I thought, okay, well, I'll end up with Jan Kestner or Fahey Klein maybe if I'm lucky, but otherwise I was just making work. And I started showing work actually while I was the lab supervisor. I designed and built the entire darkrooms at UC Irvine. And that was my first job out of school. So I kind of did what, a lot of young artists do. They get their master's degree. I worked at a camera store, and then I went on to build darkrooms, and then I went on to finally teach because I started showing. So with exhibiting, that allowed me to get teaching jobs with the first gallery, who I have been with for a very long time, Regan Projects in Los Angeles. And that was never in my wheelhouse that I would ever end up in that world at all. And teaching was, I was a longtime camp counselor. You could kind of see it in my personality. I was like a really, really dedicated camp counselor. I mean, we're talking 7 years of being a camp counselor. That is some dedication to bunk beds and cobwebs.
Wet bathing suits.
And wet bathing suits and musty smelling children and packing up trunks. And I really think that one of the most important things that you can do with knowledge or your time is to give back. And I'm of the generation that still believes in being a good citizen. And that being a good citizen isn't about any kind of nationalism or anything like that, but it's about that when you do something in life, you give back. And that kind of mantra of that is very important to me.
Right.
And then you get to watch them. You like teach all these fabulous people then, and you get to watch them become their own. And I can imagine that maybe my teachers felt that way about me. And like that there's something about that through the generation of doing that and giving. And I really like it, but I'm almost at the end of it.
You are almost at the end, and so.
Yeah.
But let me circle back before I
But
address
chairing,
the
why
end of
be
it.
in chair? Who
I'm
knows?
gonna. We're gonna go there, but not just yet. I understand the desire to sort of pay it forward, and and I understand the desire, and I applaud it, and you know, to be a good citizen is to contribute to the institutions that make our lives what they are. But I want to know from maybe for you, like, what is a slightly more selfish version of it? Like, what did it make possible for you as an artist, do you think? Like, what do you think, was it always something, it was over there, or did it feed your own work in some way?
Yeah, I would say on a practical level, it gave me health insurance and it gave me a paycheck. And it allowed me, besides that giving back and really loving to teach, I never taught from myself as an artist. Like,
What do you mean by that?
I've never used myself as an example or what I do as the way to make work. There are some artists that teach where it's like, oh, my way of making work is the right way of making work. But I've never been interested in that. Like, I'm really interested in what they bring to me. And then what I get out of it is like an incredible satisfaction of what true mentoring does. That you see somebody, you listen to them, you understand what they're trying to do with their work, you guide them, you show them things that they had never seen before, and their minds are kind of blown. And it's that's what I like the most, is not my ego involved in it, but the kind of idea of what it is to listen to somebody and guide them and work on something that they're also passionate about, that you have the same passion for.
Well, that's uncanny in a way, because that could be like a description of what it's like to sit for you.
Oh.
No, seriously, right? There's no posing. You don't tell people what to do.
Well, I do. I tell them where they put their hands.
Yeah, you've got that camp counselor thing going for sure. But it's not as, I mean, you get the sense that when you look at your pictures of people that we know, that you've got them somehow, that there's something that you've seen them, and that what's important about them is them, not you.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also am like somebody who doesn't believe that a portrait is the essence of a person.
Ah.
So I actually don't believe that. I actually believe that it's only a shared moment in time. And that whatever anybody comes to you with on that given day, and whatever mood they're in or whatever you're trying to do, that you're just sharing space with them. And it's a very quiet process making portraits for me. I mean, I do adjust people. I do tell them how I want them to sit. But there's no music playing in the studio. It's pretty fast. And it's just, it's done in the most kind of quiet way where I want to try to capture somebody's kind of inner thoughts more so than the essence. And that's just a shared moment in my mind.
That's so interesting, because it's not what the pictures feel like. The pictures feel like really profound registrations of those people. I mean, for you, I think that's fascinating. It is this kind of, I mean, almost Cartier-Bresson moment of like that capture, that indexical quality of photography to still time, and then let it, move through time. But I mean, when I think about that great, portrait of Lawrence Weiner that is,
with the
floating
smoke,
by, or the one of Mary Kelly, or the one of Thelma Golden and her partner Dura Olawu, like you seem to somehow, I don't know, just like really get at the, I don't know, essence. I don't know what that means, but like,
yeah,
you
but
seem
people
to really
talk
get at
about
something.
that with
Yeah.
portraiture. They
Yes.
talk about that with portraiture, and I just never really got that about it. Like, I like looking at people and taking portraits. I really enjoy that a lot. I think we were saying the other day on the phone when we were talking, at the heart of it, at the end of the day, even though I make an enormous amount of landscapes, I'm probably a portraitist in a certain way at the heart of my practice at the end of the day, because I love taking portraits, and it's just like a really enjoyable space for me to be in.
And do you think you love taking, like, what is it particularly about the portrait thing? Like, do you really like people? Do you like looking at people? Are you a voyeur? Like, what's the?
Well, I'm not a voyeur, I don't think. I don't know. At times I can use voyeurism at times within my work, but I don't think my work is really about voyeurism to a certain extent. I think some people might have thought it was about that. I think so. I think that like the early self-portraits, people would think of as that I was trying to shock. I remember getting that a lot. It's like, oh, why are you trying to shock us? And I was like, oh, I actually wasn't. I didn't know I was doing that. I was just in my community doing what I was doing in my community. So there were a lot of different kind of things around those, or that the idea that the queer community could end up being, the viewer could be voyeuristic in relationship to my community. And I understood that was a potential trap. And I was aware of that and became very nervous about it. And that's why after making those portraits, I immediately started making freeway photographs.
Right.
Because it's like, we're gonna take another off-ramp here, everybody.
Right.
Because you're not gonna trap me in this kind of positioning of your own ideas about what photography can do or what it does. I'm gonna just keep like kind of creating a lot of left turns for you out there.
Do you think, I've never thought about asking you this before. So, you're queer, I'm queer, you've taken pictures of lots of queer people. You're really important in the history of queer people and queer imagery. Do you think you take queer landscape pictures?
So, people have said that too before to me. I don't, the queer, I'm a dyke. But that doesn't.
And I just want everyone to know how old-fashioned it is to say that. There ain't a lot of ladies out here on these mean streets saying I'm a dyke. I just want everyone to understand that is some deep shit to say that on this stage. It really and truly is. I love you for that. I love you for that.
I am. I'm perfect. I've always identified in that way. But when somebody tries to argue that the freeways are queer space to me, I don't buy it. Like, I'm like, okay, why? I want to more ask, like, well, why are they queer space for you? For me, I had to take 5 freeways to work, to go to UC Irvine 5 days a week, and that's what I was looking at. Because at the end of the day, we all just like look at what is around us and then try to figure out those pieces of the puzzle in relationship to those questions again that you're trying to answer. So no, I don't really look at the landscapes necessarily as queer, but I look at the landscapes for me as a place of solace and a place of meditation. They're where I go to bring myself down a notch. It's like the portraits are intense, they ask for a lot, and then when I can all of a sudden have that moment where I'm just looking at this place and thinking about another kind of space, it's really a place of meditation for me.
Well, that's very beautiful, because that really does tie back to the most recent body of work and what I felt so strongly this quality of mourning and grief in those pictures. And I think that it didn't feel exploitative to me, in part because I think you have this tradition of being very meditative when you take landscape photographs. And so that meditation in the American South this past year was really profound. All right, one more pivot.
Okay, another pivot. Here we go. Are you guys ready?
Well, it's still going to be about Kathy, so don't worry. The other new thing that happened to you during this period was Phaidon
the book.
this extraordinary book, which I realize
And
you
you all
all
have.
so generous and wonderful that you're all going to leave with this really extraordinary monograph on Kathy's work. And I wondered if you could, obviously photography and the book have a long history, right? And the photo book is a kind of thing, and it's a thing in and of itself. And then for an artist at this stage in your professional life to have a book that kind of sums up everything is a huge moment as an artist to be able to be afforded that privilege. Not everyone gets that. It's a huge deal. It's very, very special. But I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, because we just consume these books, right? And then they live on our coffee table and they live on our bookshelf, and they mean one thing to us. But could you talk a little bit about what does it mean to you to have that book? What was it like to work with the folks to produce a book of such substance, of that nature, about your whole career?
Well, I think in a way we had a conversation when we got it in the studio, and Helen wrote for the book, and we kind of both went through every page together, and we're looking at it, and it's one thing when you do the PDFs and you're editing and you're doing all of that, but when you have the physical finished book in your hand, it was really emotional. Yeah. And I really feel like it was a gift, because I think that with Phaidon came to me, they actually had an incredible plan that I would have never come up with. And I think in a certain way it follows a little bit with Helen's show at the ICA of Empty and Full, of connecting those ideas together. But they were able to make 3 sections of people, place, and politics, which are the 3 kind of definitive things that are really embedded within my work and the way that I think about it. And when they said, what do you think about these themes? I immediately went, well, that's perfect, but I don't want a chronological book. I have seen my work chronologically now quite a bit, and I actually want the work to finally mingle together, because that has always made me really nervous as an artist in terms of installing exhibitions. And I thought, well, here's a chance to be able to tell a different story with the work. Mm-hmm. And Phaidon did that, and they allowed it. And I'll have to say, out of 300 images, this is how precise and how meaningful and important in terms of how they were looking at my work as an artist for me, is that I only moved 7 photographs in the final edit. I only changed 7 in the final sequence. And that's very rare, because for those who know me and have worked with me, I'm slightly controlling. So it was just one of those experiences that you get to have, I feel like, once in your lifetime. And the book does represent so many different aspects of me, including, photographs that have never been printed or published before, that aren't part of bodies of work, but that stand in as important moments of how I've looked at the world all these years with a camera, which started when I was 9 years old. So it's a beautiful thing to have.
The book is really extraordinary, and as someone who I've spent so much time with your work, and like I said, I'm the EGOT, like I've worked with it in all these different manifestations, and I found the book revelatory. I saw things in some of your pictures that I had never seen before. The book designer did a wonderful, wonderful job. I should know
Garrett.
his name. Yeah, Garrett. Do you know his last name? Yeah, we should know his name. If you're out there listening, Garrett.
Sorry, Garrett.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But the flow of the images really showed, for instance, that you're a great colorist. It had never occurred to me to think about color in the work as much. And it showed not only these big overarching themes had consistency, but smaller, tender details in the photograph had consistency as well over time. But I have to ask you a question, like that is so perverse what you just said. Like the thing, like here comes a major art publisher, Phaidon, and they're like, we want to do your total book. And that's the moment where you're like, I'm really nervous about non-chronological, but I think we should do it? Like, really? Why did you make yourself so, like, what was...
It was
I can't
just
even
time.
ask the question. It's just so
I just had made enough
counterintuitive.
work. I just had made so much work that I needed to see it differently as well. And I don't think I would have ever taken those kinds of chances in an exhibition, but you can do things differently in a book. And the photographers, like photographers and books are like things that are like, you know, intrinsically together. It's the one medium where photography still, you know, even though it doesn't have the scale or what you can do in an installation, it's still pretty clear, like that the picture you see in the museum is the picture that's in the book, and you can relate to it that way.
Right.
And I just felt like it was just time for me to let go of things as well. And because they had picked these 3 themes, I could as soon as they said the 3 themes, I automatically saw how everything could weave together, that a portrait wasn't just a portrait, it was also politics and place and all of that, and that it could encompass kind of my giant, you know, brain making so many different types of photographs, actually. So it was just time.
I'm going to ask you one last question, then we're going to turn it over to the audience.
Okay.
What's the most important thing to you about being an artist?
Helen's never asked me this, so now I have to think for a moment. I mean, there's so many things about being an artist, but I think that the most important thing is really the articulation of one's ideas to be able to go forth into the world and be presented to an audience such as you, to be able to understand the way that I also see things or think. But it is, again, it comes down to that basic thing of being able to communicate. And I'm not a wordsmith, I'm not a writer, but I'm a wordsmith with images.
Right. You have really offered us over the years, Kathy, just such a beautiful body of work, and some of the images you've made I hold so close in my heart and in my mind's eye. They've really shaped me, so it's a pleasure to be able to thank you for that publicly.
Thank you, my friend.
I think that there are microphones that are going to go around if people would like questions. And I think also for the folks out there on the interweb, there's some way we're going to get your questions on stage. If you would, so if you've got questions out there on the internet, please ask. But is there anyone who has any questions, comments?
Yes.
Great.
Randall Rothenberg. I'm one of the trustees of ICP. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Question about all your years as a teacher and an artist. Campuses have been riven by issues relating to speech and depictions in recent years. As an artist, you want to be able to go where you go, depict what you depict, but at the same time, we're seeing in the culture kind of a need to kind of pull back and be more thoughtful about these things. How do you talk about this with your students?
You're talking about ethics. Yeah. You talk about ethics with your students. You talk about what representation means. And you literally also want to make sure that, in my opinion, I have a very hard time with inhumane images. I have a very hard time with people being looked at in a way in which that they're not their best selves. And so I really talk about that, about what needs to be in the world, or why are you pushing this? I had one really interesting student who was studying abroad from China, and he was taking an enormous amount of homeless photographs in Los Angeles because of the incredible problem, there. I mean, we have 55,000 people living on the streets or more in Los Angeles. And I asked him why he was doing this and what was important to him about it. So the other thing is, you always need to not shoot anybody down, so to speak, but you need to also understand why this is what they're seeing. And then you work with them in terms of it. And it said he had never seen anything like this in China. He had never experienced it. So for him, it was like the most surprising, shocking thing about being a student at UCLA and studying in Los Angeles. And so you just really try to, again, use your ability of listening with the students to then talk about true ethical ideas in relationship to representation and what the camera can do and the power of the camera. Yeah.
There's someone back there.
I have a question. Is there a museum that you're not in that you'd like to be in?
Well, you know what? It was always MoMA, and they finally did it. So it was my dream to always be part of the Museum of Modern Art, because I grew up with learning from basically Zarkowski School of photographers. And so to not have been part of that and feeling my whole life that I was such a photographer's photographer, that that was a history that was one that I wanted to crack, and it's been cracked. So I'm very happy about that.
And there was a picture, and they put it up in the first version of the MoMA rehang. So it was doubly good. Yeah, I'm just making sure there's not anyone that over here that we can't see. Anyone else?
Oh, we have one right behind you,
okay.
too.
Then there's a woman, the woman in the hat in the back.
So I'm sorry if I don't already know this, but I understand now you chair the program of photography on the school out west. Do you teach still? I mean, can a person sign up for your class?
I do not, unfortunately, teach undergraduates anymore, but I teach my grad students still. So usual course load for a UCLA professor is 5 classes a year, 2 undergrad, 3 grad sections. So I'm just doing my 3 grad sections, but then doing the rest of the time just being an administrator, so to say, yeah. Which I miss my undergrad, so I started this thing called Coffee with Kathy. Everybody thinks it's so geeky, but I love it. It's my favorite part of the morning. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I put a cappuccino machine in my office, and undergrads come in and they spend an hour with me and they have coffee with Kathy. And it literally is my favorite part of the day.
There's that camp counselor thing again. You might as well have a bowl of Halloween candy year round on the desk. That's amazing. There's another woman in the back there.
Kathy, I am 32 years older than you are, and I have been with ICP since 3 months before they opened. And so I have a very, very long history. And you just said you are not a wordsmith, but you are. And that's what connected me today, sitting here with your pictures, is you and your wordsmith, because you are so connected, and being able to be a part of the art that you present. And that, for me, is very important, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a lovely thing to say.
And then do you have an internet question?
I do, yes. This is from Anju.
On the internet. Hi. Over here to you.
Hello, World Wide Web.
See, Helen and I, we're going to do a talk show one day.
This is happening.
This is from Anju. How do you connect so deeply to the people that you have photographed? Is it different from the way that you connect to the places?
Say again.
How do you connect so deeply with the people that you photograph, and is it different from the way you connect with places?
Yeah, well, people are different than places, but I would say that I still try to have the same kind of connection to, sorry, you're over here. I'm looking at the person. I would say that there are some times where place is a portrait for me, and I think about it in terms of portraiture, but a person you know, I can stand for 3.5 hours at a place and watch the light slowly change, but you never want to do that to a person in the studio. You kind of want to get them in, like really like talk to them, you know, feel that kind of connection and then move on. So I always was really surprised by different photographers that would tell me that they would do these portrait sessions where it would take like 3 or 4 hours. And I would be like, how did anybody put up with that? So, because I think you can get it pretty quickly, and you know when you have it.
You're really fast, though. When I sat for you, I was amazed by the alacrity. I mean, and it's true. There's no music. So all that Hollywood, like, you know, look here, you look great, smile, sexy, woo, none of that is happening. It's like super zen in the studio. And I think at one point you were like, you know, you did this with your fingers, like, look over here, boom, done. And then, and like, that was it. You're just like, I mean, it was like shorter than going through TSA.
Well, yeah, that's true. It is.
Yeah,
shorter than going through TSA.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you're like, oh. And
but
then it's...
who wants to have a bunch of strobe lights, hit them over and over again? It's very, don't you think it's uncomfortable having your portrait taken? Like, I want to try to make it really comfortable and meaningful, and that you just know that you have it because you know how to take a picture and you know how to light, and then you just hug and move on.
I know, but you're saying that very casually. I mean, I think that there is a kind of performance around taking someone's picture, and you don't engage in that kind of performance.
But
and
that's
I think,
ego again. Then it's about you, the photographer, and it should never be about you, the photographer.
well,
I mean, you should know your style, so to speak.
Right.
Like, hopefully people recognize that it's my work when they see it's my work. But you shouldn't, like, make it about you.
Well, I always call you the, you know, I think Kathy's the Buddha of the art world. And you have Buddha energy. You have present, you've used the word meditation a few times. I mean, there's a quality of contemplation and quietness in the work that is actually really generous to the other, because it says, you, the other, have this space, and it's to the ethics question again, I see you. You know, like, that is an ethical act, and I think that is not typical.
Yeah, I mean, photography is highly manipulative, right? As a medium, we know that.
Yeah.
So how do you work within that intrinsic kind of knowledge of the manipulation of what an image can do? And I do feel like you have to swerve in and out in relationship to being able to grasp at, you know, larger meanings.
Right. Yeah. Hold on, let's get you a mic so that everyone can hear you, though, because there's like a whole wing back here you can't see.
This is about a particular body of work, the Yosemite pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Which I just find interesting because I think there's such a clarity of sharpness and color and light, like sometimes a Caravaggio light, or But in those pictures, you blurred the images, and I'm just curious that when I first saw them, I was like, those are not Catherine Opie, no way. And they had to convince me they were. But can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a gesture that I did when I started doing portraits on black, that I placed abstract landscapes with them, and this was probably about, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago I started that body of work. I would have to look at the dates, it's hard to remember. But I think that I was questioning at that time when I was basically just racking the focus and shooting with your aperture all the way open because you don't want to have any depth of field. And I wanted to do that because of us carrying a camera in our pocket, quite honestly. I wanted us to have a relationship on a cognitive level to images again, where we have to try to sit there and figure out what we're really standing before. They're all, pretty much national parks or state parks that I've done them in. And so it's like if you are looking at just a completely focused image of Niagara Falls now, what are we really getting out of Niagara Falls? Like, why do we need to see an image of Niagara Falls anymore? And then the other thing is that people go to the Grand Canyon, they take their cell phone out of their pocket, and they take a picture, and they get back in their car, and they think that they've experienced the Grand Canyon. And that kind of experience in relationship to social media had me really questioning that as a gesture about 8 years ago. So these like very kind of almost allegorical portraits, which I didn't really play with allegory that much, but when I started the portraits on black, they were much more allegorical. They've changed now to be more straight portraits because I'm still using the black background. But it was that kind of cognitive relationship to get people to stop and look again, because we get flooded with so many images. So how do we just like bring it down? And then the other thing that we didn't really talk about today that I'm constantly brushing up against within my practice, and Helen's written about it, is the cliche and iconic. So the notion of both the cliche and what is iconic is always something in my mind to redistribute, to begin to kind of calibrate our relationship to that, especially in terms of how images function in the world. Sure, that was a long answer to your question.
That was a good one. I think there was someone over here, yes.
Hi.
This is not a question. I just wanted to share with everyone. I think it's adorable how modest you are. Because I was privileged to sit for Kathy also. I was hoping it wasn't going to go fast. I had no idea what to expect. I was like, I take pictures also, and I was thinking, I'm going to, learn how did she set up the room? What is she thinking? How is she clicking? And I know when I take a picture, there is a moment where you kind of click with the person. And so I remember speaking to you afterwards, because you didn't let me choose which picture, and I probably could have looked prettier in some of the sets, but you were very, very adamant about the one you chose, and
That's my control.
But I loved that, and because you knew exactly what you wanted to end up with, and then we stopped. And so, I just wanted to say that was an incredible experience, and you're being so modest. I think you were really, I don't know what you were expecting when I walked in the room, but I was like a little terrified.
Oh.
And then I walked out of there and I said, wow, that was just a really great hour. So,
that's nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I am attuned to details, and I find that the arrival of the podium on the stage suggests
yes.
that perhaps...
And look, 0!
We have made our time. I want to thank you all so much, and thank you, Kathy.
Wow. Thank you, ICP. All right.
Thank you, Kathy and Helen. That was really amazing. Kathy, we have to talk later. I'm hoping that I could convince you to do coffee with Kathy at the ICP too. That would be great. Okay, 5 classes. That's really impressive too. Spotlights has always been an event that supports education, as I mentioned earlier, and on its 10th anniversary, we are once again fundraising for ICP exhibitions in education, with a portion of all funds receiving underwriting our scholarships. You may make a donation through the card on your table, and we know you've already given, but if you want to give more, and for those of you who are online and in this camera that I'm looking at, you can go to the link on the screen and donate. To demonstrate the impact of your support, I'm honored to highlight the 2 students who this year received the Mary Ellen Mark Memorial Scholarship and the Christian Louboutin Scholarship. At this moment, I'm delighted to welcome ICP's Managing Director of Education, Ann Massoni, to introduce the students. Ann? Oh, here you are.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you everyone for being here for the 10th anniversary of Spotlights. I could not be more honored to be here today to speak a little bit about ICP's education programs, and particularly our full-time 1-year certificate program in creative practices and documentary practice and visual journalism. In ICP's programs, our talented students engage in year-long coursework, workshops, and mentorship that strengthen their personal vision, refine their skills and visual literacy, and enable them to explore the many disciplines within visual culture and media. It is ICP's goal to empower the visual storytellers of tomorrow through our education programs. And as a school, we take great pride in the range of voices our program helps to amplify. Students join us from all over the globe and range in age and experiences, making ours a truly unique program. Scholarships are critical to providing barrier-free access to photographic education at ICP. The generosity of ICP supporters is appreciated by our students and our community of faculty and staff. Today, I am so grateful to announce the 2nd year of partnership with Christian Louboutin, in which they sponsor Spotlights and underwrite a scholarship for a student in one of our programs. It has been an immense pleasure to partner with Louboutin, and with whom we share the value of encouraging greater equity and inclusion in cultural sectors. I am so delighted to announce that this year's recipient, Elwan Henderson, who is currently enrolled in ICP's Creative Practice Program and here celebrating with us today. Hi, Elwan. In Elwan's work, which you can see here, he manipulates his negatives to create aesthetically striking work, challenging the notion of street photography and experimenting with the overlay and manipulation of transparent materials to create his emotive images. He aims to challenge the convention of analog photography while honoring its traditions. I'm really looking forward to watching your practice over the next year, seeing where it takes you. Thank you again to Christian Louboutin and their support of our students. Now, as we come to a close of this 10-year anniversary of ICP Spotlights, there is just one more name I need to bring up, and that is of Mary Ellen Mark. I may be somewhat new to ICP, starting here only last year, but one thing I quickly learned is how much of a community it is here at the school. As an educator and mentor, Mary Ellen Mark was very much an incredible, valued member of ICP's family, and her legacy since she passed away in 2016 has been carried on through an annual scholarship in her name here. The Mary Ellen Mark Memorial Scholarship helps to eliminate barriers for talented artists who want to come and learn with us and be a part of the very community that she fostered over those years. I'm so incredibly proud to announce at Spotlights, an event that has been honoring women and their achievements in photography for 10 years, that this year's Mary Ellen Mark Memorial Scholarship goes to ICP student Tanya Sarkar. Tanya is enrolled in our online documentary practice and visual journalism program, which she takes from her home in West Bombay, India, where she's from. Tanya's poetic and sensitive work investigates India's socio-political reality through suppressed stories of women, unearthing connections between religious violence and patriarchal violence targeting women. When Tanya's application arrived, there was an immediate consensus of the strength of her work and her voice, that she can study and make work in the place where her voice is so needed, brings to light the significance of our ICP's online programming. With Mary Ellen Mark's own history of documenting the story of women, we cannot think of a better recipient to carry on this legacy than Tanya. For obvious reasons, Tanya could not be here today, but she wanted to quickly share a few words, and we have her by video.
Hi, I'm Tanya Sharkar from India. This year, I have received the respected Mary Ellen Mark Scholarship. First of all, I'm thankful to ICP for choosing me for this year's scholarship and allowing me to their community. Without this financial aid, I would have not been able to pursue this course, which is actually helping my existing vision and also to my future endeavors.
Congratulations, Tanya, and again to you, Elwan. Thank you, Lou Baton, and the supporters of Spotlights who help make these important scholarships possible. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Elwan, for coming here, and also to Tanya for sending her remarks. Congratulations to both of you. We wish you the best of luck in your photographic education and hope ICP will always remain home for you for years to come. I'd also like to thank once again our event and scholarship sponsors, Christian Louboutin, and the supporters of this year's Mary Ellen Mark Memorial Scholarship. Scholarships at the ICP, as Ann mentioned, help remove barriers for our students around the globe to access world-class photography, and it's also wonderful to see how our online courses are doing that as well. They also help to diversify the perspectives of storytellers of tomorrow. Thank you all for your support. The link to donate is on the screen for those of you who are online. Now, for those of you in person, please join us on the other side of the room. Virtually, you can imagine that, going to the other side of the room, and for a closing reception. And we're really excited to have a book signing with Kathy, and thank Fiden and everyone for putting that together. And we're really honored to be the site for that book signing, Kathy. And for those of you who are tuning in, I don't know if I mentioned that we're at 79 Essex Street. On the F and the M train. And so when you do come to New York, please come visit us. And for anyone out there who says, oh, I've been to the ICP, isn't it on the Bowery or on 43rd Street? Tell them no, it's on 79 Essex Street, and come to visit us. So thank you again, and have a good afternoon. Take care.
Trust into us, and we will help you through, 'cause we only want what's best for